right, so we're here with Tyler Benedict. So, just tell us a little bit about yourself, like your background and everything.
Yeah, so I mean, various marketing, advertising, all that stuff through college journalism degree from the University of Florida, and
Hmm.
never thought I'd use it honestly, but kind of just always enjoyed tinkering and trying new ideas. So I had a sports drink brand for a little bit. I had an
Hmm.
energy drink brand for a little bit, and when that business was kind of tanking,
Hmm.
because the energy drink market was brutal and
Yeah.
sucked in every way. I started a site called Bike Rumor to cover the cycling industry from the tech side,
Hmm.
because I never really cared about racing. I just liked the shiny things.
Yeah.
So that's all we talked about was all the new bikes and components, and it went pretty well.
Yeah.
Grew it, launched that in 2008, grew it pretty big, sold it
Hmm.
in 2020. Still contribute there a little bit,
Yep.
but and have since launched another site called Adventurous Way of Life that covers van life and overland, and
Hmm.
that's really kind of where my current passion is. Like I'll always ride bikes,
Yeah.
but like exploring kind of by vehicle, vehicle based adventure is sort
Yeah.
of what we're going for. And so yeah,
Yeah.
that was the super short version.
Yeah. So, how did you end up getting connected with Vandoit?
Through bike, really, they showed up at like Sea Otter
Yeah.
and Handmade Bike Show when that was a thing, and just super friendly people,
Yeah.
as you know, right?
Yeah.
It's just this awesome family run business, and we just chit chatted, and like they were trying to break into the bike market more, and
Hmm.
we were clearly established in that, and so we just started talking about, working together, and
Yeah.
ended up building a band. So ordered it in 2019, picked it up in 2020.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I ordered it right before the
Yeah.
pandemic,
So you still.
and I got lucky on that timing, and I've just been crushing miles and having
Yeah.
adventures in it ever since.
Yeah, that's awesome. It is cool to see because that was definitely a conscious effort by Vandoit at the beginning was to because Brent Klein, one of our founders, is such an avid cyclist. Like we were definitely trying to get into that market, especially like the way your van is laid out with that hydraulic bed lift,
Yeah.
the gear slide underneath where you can store your bikes inside.
And I've managed to cram 5 bikes under there one
That's
time.
awesome.
Five or 4 in a surfboard, or 5
Yeah.
bikes, and it's tight.
Yeah, it's
But
kind of staggering back and forth.
yeah, staggered. Pedals are off. Handlebars are twisted. But
Yeah.
made it work.
Do you have like a one specific trip that is like your favorite trip you've ever done in the van?
Oh man, I mean, I'll split it into 2 if that's cool.
Yeah.
Like because I've traveled with my family a lot. Like we've been traveling with our kids since they were this big. One was in a car seat in a minivan, and then we got a huge RV. Like we upgraded completely to a 37-foot Class A toy hauler.
Yeah.
Which was awesome. So I could get like 13 bikes in that.
Yeah, exactly.
5 beds. It was ridiculous. And then kind of did what we could do in something that big, and then
Yeah.
started looking at these because we wanted something that was kind of the best of both worlds, right?
Yeah.
And my biggest thing was, on the minivan, I hated having the bikes outside because every time we'd stop somewhere, you have to unlock the bikes, pull them all into a tiny hotel room.
Yeah.
In the morning, you undo it all, and so you're always kind of worried about the security of them. They're out in the weather. So with the RV, we could get everything inside,
Yeah.
pull into a Walmart. You don't have to do anything, right? Like
Yeah.
you just climb in the back and sleep.
Yeah.
And so the Vandoit was kind of this perfect compromise of like, okay, it's more maneuverable. We can drive it into a city,
Mm-hmm.
and I can keep the bikes inside, and we can sort of sleep inside. So
Yeah.
when we first picked it up, we had the Thule Tepui Wedge rooftop tent
Mm-hmm.
on it, plus so we could sleep 2 on top, 2 inside.
Yeah.
So for campgrounds, it's perfect. And then, yeah, so adventure-wise, like when we started these trips, it was with 4 of us, and we had a seat in the back, and I can talk to you more about the configuration later. But
Yeah.
The one that really stands out to me was we did Vermilion Cliffs in, I might mess this up, I'm pretty sure it's Arizona, and it was just awesome. Like we ended up parking next to this hippie guy who was out hunting fossils, and it wasn't like rock fossils. He was looking for fossilized footprints.
Yeah.
And so we're like looking around, we're like, you're nuts, man. Like what? And he was so excited about it. But the funniest part of that story is like we pull up in a park and we're trying to find somewhere not close to a lot of people, total boondocking. And we're like, all right, his van's, it's far enough away, it's fine, whatever. As soon as we like get it all leveled, we're setting up a table and stuff, this guy comes over, he's like, I don't want to alarm you guys, but there might be a bunch of like federal agents out here in the morning. And we're like, what the hell? Like, what?
Yeah.
What is going on? And he's just like, because I found fossils. And we're like, okay. So he was like showing us. And it's like, once he pointed one out, and it was like, whatever it was some kind of sloth thing, right? And so then when they step in the mud,
Yeah.
it would like smear. So you'd have like a footprint shape, but then a little smear.
Yeah.
And it's like once you see one, you're like, oh, there's one, there's one, there's one. There. So it
That's
was really
crazy.
cool. It was really neat. And then from there, we wanted to get to Escalante, but all off road. And so you kind of like go back up on the highway for a minute to Big Water, and then from Big Water you can go off road, and it kind of you can loop around past the big lake that everybody goes to, not Lake Mead, the other one in Arizona, and then up to Escalante, all off road, and it's incredible. So we're like following Jeeps up as far as we could go, and when they got Jeep, we just like parked, but we ended up at this spot that was like looking over. You could see the lake, you could see this massive, like almost like Ayers rock sized rock.
Yeah.
And it was just awesome. And then you come down and it's just this off road wonderland.
Yeah.
Through, and we hit this patch of soft sand, and I'm like telling the family, I'm like, all right, I know you guys don't like it when I drive fast, but I can't slow down in the sand. We're going. And as soon as we start going, you're just like surfing this soft sand, and all of a sudden then there's cows, and we're like, oh my god, I can't. I'm like dodging between cows, and I'm like baby cows, and they're somehow like all on the side of the road. Like if one of them had come out, we'd have gotten stuck for sure. But we're just like surfing soft sand through a sea of cows. It was super fun. And then just like that kind of stuff, right? Like you get out where nobody is. I mean, I think we saw like 4 cars over the day and a half we were doing it.
Yeah.
Because we camped at the top of that high point, which is amazing. So that was a really good one with the family. And then last fall, my son and I went out west, and I live in North Carolina, so for us to get out west, that's 3 days of whatever. So we'll stop and we'll hit like Bentonville and stuff to mountain bike, and trying to like make the most of the trips. And we were going to do El Camino del Diablo again in Arizona, which is really, really cool. It's about I think it's around 100 miles from point to point. And it's like, it's one of those things, like my buddy was in a Jeep, so we're caravanning, which is good. And he was always in front, because if we did get stuck, which we did, he could just tow us out. Yeah. So it was, like I was confident enough that we could do it, because we were checking the trail conditions and weather and all that, and it was kind of like perfect. And there's definitely a lot of sand on that one too, and it was great. I got to teach my son how to like drive in sand, kind of like drive slow on rocky sections, and same thing. It's like when you hit a curve and it's deep enough, like there's only so much you can do in rear wheel drive, because we didn't get the all wheel drive model, and it was such a fun thing to be able to like teach him how to drive off road and to experience like just all the amazing public lands we have in this country. Yeah, it's next level. It's
like the biggest hidden gem that we have in this country is like all this public land that we just have access to that most of us don't take that much advantage of. So
it's amazing that you can go out for 2 or 3 days and you'll see 5 people.
Yeah,
if that. Yeah, it's nuts. Yeah, so I mean that to me was a highlight, because you teach them, and it's like all the people getting into van life and overland, right? Especially like overland. We all have all this equipment, and probably too much in many cases, right? Like I've got the traction boards, I have the winch, I've got tow straps, shackles, all this stuff, and it's like you don't really want to have to use it, but you kind of want to use it.
You kind of so, you kind of want to get stuck so you can get yourself out.
Yeah, so we got to use most all the things. I still haven't used the winch for anything other than like dorking around. Yeah. But it was super fun to like actually be able to use those things and learn from my friend in the Jeep, because he's done it a lot more than I have, and and then just to see what you can get away with in these things. Yeah. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. It's amazing hearing you doing all that off-roading in your rear wheel drive. Doesn't have like the Quigley anything on it.
No. It's got, so we did do a 2-inch spacer lift from Transit Off-Road. So it's got literally just a spacer stack above the front struts, and then the 2-inch block in the back. So other than that, it's still the stock struts, coils, and leaves. Which, it's something I'd like to upgrade, but I also really like how how comfortable the ride is, right? And when you start adding stiffer springs and stiffer everything, it's going to feel a lot rougher. And it's like, I think a lot of that stuff is made to handle high-speed hits when you're off-road, and I'm not racing that thing off-road. We're cruising, right? So I'm kind of happy with where it's at. And I actually really like that. If I wanted to do more lift, right, it's for the rear-wheel drive, because you don't have the transmission running through the spindles on the front. Yeah, it's really easy to get like up to 5 inches of lift in the front. Yeah, just doing spacers and spindles. And then the rear, you just add a taller leaf stack and a little bit bigger spacer if you want. And you can get away with a lot. Yeah.
So I took a look at your van, and there are a couple of things that looks like you've done yourself. You were mentioning you just put in like a kitchen setup.
Yeah.
Or like it's like a wooden kind of kitchen setup.
Yeah, and I really like. I was looking at T-Tracks. I know you guys don't use any wood, which
Yeah.
I appreciate. And I'm like, man, I don't have time to figure that out.
Yeah.
But also, it's like really expensive. And
Yeah.
I spent like $50 on wood at Home Depot and
Yeah.
cut it all in a day. And yeah, because I wanted to basically add a microwave. Like that was sort of the driving force behind that. Because as much as we've traveled, it's like we got an electric water kettle.
Yeah.
I'm like, compared to boiling water over a flame, like that's plug it in, and 2 minutes later you got boiling water.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, man, like like a lot of the stops that we do, we'll pull in late somewhere, and we're like, all right, let's get burritos somewhere.
Yeah.
And, so you spend a lot of money on prepared foods, and it's not always the healthiest choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I just want to sometimes cook something and not just have a bowl of cereal in the van. And so having a microwave's another game changer. It's like, I think that's a trend right now. I'm seeing a lot of videos of people going, you got to go electric. And I went electric and it changed my life. And I'm like, how am I going to do that video too? But it really is a total game changer. And, there's so much power on board these things to run that stuff. And so we got a Dometic cooler, electric cooler. Now I got a microwave and a kettle. And it's like, I don't need a camp stove for anything.
And that's all running off your AGM system, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Do you have to plug in very often?
Almost never. I'll plug it in at home sometimes and let it sit on shore power for a day or two sometimes, just to kind of like reset the system.
Yeah.
But no, otherwise, I mean, I don't think I've ever plugged in at a campsite.
Yeah.
So it's
that's
got,
awesome.
When we first picked it up, before we got the rooftop tent on, we had 400 watts. So we had 400 watts of solar on the roof. And at that point, I could leave like the ceiling fan running and the Dometic cooler.
Yeah.
As long as there was like some sun every day, like it never drew. Once we put the rooftop tent on, we had to pull 2 panels off, so we were down to 200 watts solar. And with that one, the cooler will definitely kind of like trickle it down in about 2 days.
Yeah.
So as long as you're driving it, you're kind of fine. But I like the idea of being able to just leave it on solar for a couple days at a time and not worry about it.
Yeah, and you're getting some solar put back on your.
Yeah. So now that my kids are a little more grown and it's mostly 2 of us at a time on a trip. We pulled the rooftop tent off to save a little weight and we're putting 2 back on to get 400 watts total.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
That seems to me the sweet spot is 400 watts, I think.
It still gives you that ability to run your components and like your fridge and air vent and everything like that. So. Yeah. You also mentioned earlier the seat that you had set up for your kids. So.
Yeah, I'm looking at these and I'm like, this is what I wanted right here. Yeah, so when we picked it up, it's funny. I ordered it in October of 2019, picked it up in May of 2020. So there was that like 7-ish months of building. Yeah. From the time I wrote it in on the order form, it was like, I need a bench seat in the back that reclines. With septon, like captain chairs. I kind of wanted captain chairs. I didn't say bench seat, right? So you guys ended up finding something, but it's funny. It's like, because you'll only mount seats that are to be used while you're driving in the factory locations, which makes total sense from a safety standpoint. It was like impossible to find something because I know like sometimes you'll see other manufacturers put in, I don't know what brand they are, but like there's literally like lazy boy style. Yeah. The footrest kicks up,
like,
and I was like,
sideways
I want that.
In them and stuff.
Yeah, I want that. And it was just impossible to find. So literally the week before I was coming to pick it up, Jared or somebody sent me a picture. I was like, hey, what do you think of these? And I was like, perfect. Yeah. And so I don't know why it was so hard to find. I don't think you guys have used those seats since.
Yeah, probably not. I don't think so. We try to stick with those Ford factory seats as much as possible.
But they're really cool. Yeah. And we really enjoyed them. And the nice thing is you can bolt them in and out too. So now that's just 2 of us. We take them out. Yeah. And have a lot more room to move around in. But yeah. So tell me about these. Like, these are something you do use, don't use?
So they're primarily in our commercial builds. So that is another aspect of Vandoit that started in the last couple of years. But they're not used in transportation. So where we're using them a lot is in like a crisis vehicle or for like homeless outreach, where they're trying to get people signed up for healthcare services that don't have access to them. So when we go to one of these communities, we have a couple vans in Tulsa, for example. When they serve the communities, it's trying to get a comfortable spot for those people that are in some kind of crisis, where they can enjoy the air conditioning, get a water bottle, they're comfortable, they feel safe. Right. And so they're not used in transportation as much as I think most people would like us to have that option. But it is trying to give somebody like a comfortable seating option in like a therapy van or a crisis van. Yeah.
Right on. Yeah. So I've got questions. Like, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
flipping
Yeah,
the
we can flip
tables
this
here a little
around.
bit. So since I picked mine up, right, 2020, we're recording this in summer 2024, late
Mm-hmm.
summer. So, a little over 4 years since I got mine. Like, big picture, I know you guys have the new Move model, but like, what's changed? What are you doing differently now than from when I picked my van up?
Yeah, so actually, what some of the stuff you can see is in this van we're currently sitting in. So a lot of these aluminum finishes. So in the Move model and our commercial models, we've added a lot of these touches. We have started building on cargo vans, which was something we didn't do until like 2023.
Right.
We were only building on passenger vans for those safety options, um, because we knew a lot of families and things like that were using our vans, and we wanted the side curtain airbags for the passengers and
Right.
those factory seats. But there are so many that are just like solo travelers or couples. They don't need any seats in the back, so we're doing those kind of cargo van builds now. And actually, if you look at our commercial builds and our Move model, they're basically the same van. Like, you can, um, we could strip out all the commercial stuff and put in a bed system and things like. A lot of the things are plug and play, where
Right.
we with our modular nature, you can just kind of change things in and out pretty quickly.
Cool. I like that. What, I mean, it's like a love-hate thing for me to come here because I've been here a few times over the
Yeah.
years to do factory tours and stuff, and it's like I love seeing what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
but then I'm like, oh man, but now I want that, and I want
Yeah,
that, and I want
exactly.
that, like all these cool new things. Like, I mean, even just this shelving system
Yeah.
that's kind of behind the camera. Sorry, everybody.
Yeah, we
Um,
can do some B-roll in here. But
it's just cool, like seeing the different storage options. I think that's the thing that a lot of people don't realize is it's like I mentioned with Overland, right? We
Mhm.
buy all the gear,
Yeah.
and then you drive for a few years and you stuff like, well, I'm never using that. I've never used that. I
Yeah.
barely use that. It's like, do I need to carry all this stuff around? And
Yeah.
I think so. I like the modular nature because you can
Yeah.
adjust to fit your needs. Like with the little cabinet thing I built, like I literally bolted that into the T-track
Yeah.
framing, so it makes it super easy. But yeah, it's like now that we've used it a few times, I can see we're like, okay, like that would be better than what I have, or I really
Mhm.
like what I have, and
Yeah.
it's nice to be able to spend some time with it and then sort out what your real needs are.
Yeah, it's also cool. Like, every time a van comes in, you see the touches that people have done to it themselves. Where if
Yeah.
you did buy like a more fixed setup, it's a little bit hard to tap into that system. But because we use the T-Track, there's just so many little modifications that, like you putting a microwave in your van,
Yeah.
building that box. People mount like bike water bottle holders to hold their shampoo and things like that.
Nice.
They put magnets under the cabinets for spices, things like that, where they can kind of just tweak things throughout the van to really set it up the way that they want it. So
Right.
it's always cool seeing.
Yeah. What's I mean, other stuff you just mentioned, like what's maybe the one or two favorite things you've seen somebody do?
That one was cool. So it was probably a lady in her upper 50s, low 60s that's probably in her retirement age, but all these little just like well thought out things where she's putting like those water bottle holders, things to mount like her crank for her awning. It's just like all these
I want that. I saw
yeah,
that. Yeah.
all these like space saving things, that because space is such a commodity in these vans, just trying to maximize that as much as possible while also carrying the things that you want,
Yeah.
like that you know you're going to need on your trip. So it's just, I don't know, just little innovations like that. And then there's another couple, Christy and Jamie Tracy. She's like an ultra cyclist, and he has bought a lot of the T-Track and built like things to mount her tires
Oh,
and like
cool.
a metal box for their microwave and little components like that. So he's just like added on to our system, which is
Right.
cool to see.
Yeah, and you can kind of order if you know the lengths and measure. Like you can kind of order T-Track
Yeah.
offline pretty. Or
It's like
online
adult
pretty easy.
Legos kind
Yeah,
of.
right?
I guess I still like a Legos as an adult, but
Yeah.
it's more adult Legos.
Very cool. So I've noticed too, like a lot of the vans here now have the tiny. I don't know what model it is, but it's a tiny little
Yeah.
Dometic rooftop AC.
Yeah.
Is that something like my van doesn't have it because we had the rooftop tent. And I know I needed that space, but now that we're not, like I'm looking at that, I'm like, yeah, it might be
Yeah.
kinda nice. How hard is that to add after the fact?
So that's like for a customer, it's just a service appointment. So figuring out when we can get your van back in, I think it's a pretty simple add-on. For your system with the AGM, I think it can technically run. It just can't run for that long.
Right.
So it may be like an hour or two before it drains your system. So it is more efficient than what we used to have,
Right.
which was just a a different model of Dometic. It wasn't DC powered. So it does have less of a draw, but it's still drawing enough to where you would need.
Okay,
a
so the
lithium.
original one, like you had to have shore power?
Yeah.
Ah, okay, that's cool. Yeah, so tell me about that. Like I know the difference between like lithium versus AGM, right? Lithium you can almost drain it to zero, and
Yeah.
AGM is like
Yeah, it doesn't like that.
you
as
definitely
much.
can't. I really, so I do want to talk to you a little bit about power too, but like just for that, is it you have any idea like how long AGM is, or is it just draws too much?
It just draws too much. I don't know the exact like. If you were only running that and nothing else, how long could you run it?
Right.
It's a weird. I talked to one person. They were like, I think you could maybe run it for 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours.
So it's kind of, like you could just turn it on at night. And,
Yeah. Maybe
Yeah.
cool your van down and then
Oh,
like
okay.
hope that it's cooling up, and then you can turn your air vent on.
Yeah.
And hope it kind of, because these are insulated somewhat, so like maybe it'll hold the temperature a little bit, especially as we get into those like cooler months. It would probably hold the temperature a little bit better.
Right.
But.
So let's talk about power. So like I'm looking, I've got the AGM, so I have 3 AGM batteries in the back, which I'm like kicking myself because I just replaced them last year, and I'm like, man, I should have gone lithium. But I'm looking at like the control systems that you have and all the modules that go along with it, and they're all very different than what I have. So like, could I upgrade? Could I just replace my AGM batteries with lithium batteries and use the same Go Solar inverter and all that? Or do you need like an entirely new system?
So it'd probably be a completely different setup. With these Master Volt batteries, we're using a Master Volt inverter as well. So it would probably have to replace that Go Power one that you're using with the AGM system.
Right. What about just like taking like literally, the AGM is essentially a car battery. Can I just like take that and swap in a lithium, or is there something different about the way the power goes in and out that I would need a new inverter controller too?
I am honestly not sure. So that's a little bit above what I know, but I do know that if you did want to upgrade to lithium, that is like with our system, it's a pretty easy swap. I just don't know the complete what all has to be changed.
Right. And then so like I know with AGMs, like I replaced the 3 in the back and the main car battery, and it was just over $1,000.
Yeah.
So I'm not super keen on just like swapping it now.
Yeah.
But if let's say I did, right? Like, what's the when the AGMs go bad for somebody that has that system? Like, if you're already figuring, okay, well, I've got $1,000 just to replace these, like, how much more than that would it be to swap to a lithium system, or is it a
it's so it's weird because a lot of the way we build our vans typically is a full package. So I'm going off of what like our build sheet says. For the most part, in our newer vans, so the Move model, it comes standard with lithium. They don't do AGM at all in that one, so it's hard for me to put like what the difference is. I do know it'd probably be a few $1,000s probably to switch out that system.
Right.
But I don't know an exact pricing.
So you're gonna pay a little extra.
Yeah, you're gonna pay a little
probably
extra.
worth it though, because these things last. Not just these, but I think any lithium you're gonna get like almost 10 years out of it.
Yeah.
If you don't abuse it, whereas you get like I got 4 years out of mine. So I think it probably evens out in the wash if you plan on keeping the van for a long time. Yeah. 10 years. Yeah. Right on. The one thing we talked a little before, maybe you've got an answer, maybe not, but I'm really curious about tires because when I got it, the upgrade option was the better rims with the BF Goodrich KO2s, and those things have been incredible. I've gotten like almost 50,000 miles out of mine, and I've probably still got another 3 or 4 before I need to replace them.
Yeah.
And so that plus the 2-inch lifts, I think, is what's let me get away with a lot. That and the fact that the van is like 9,000 pounds, so there's a lot of traction there.
Exactly.
But I know, so you're still using the KO2s, the KO3s are coming out, and so I'm curious, like, if you guys are going to swap to that once that size is available, which for people who are interested, apparently that's around February 2025.
Okay.
Is when they'll have the right size for these hands. And but then some of them, you've got the Toyo Open Countries. Like, is there, like, why are you using one versus the other?
I honestly think for most things like that we do, it's supply.
Okay.
So it's like
a good reason.
Whatever we can get our hands on. But like your setup probably has the Ultra Toil wheels with the KO2s on it. And then we have some. I don't remember the wheel, but like you mentioned, we're using that Toyo tire for some of them. But yeah, for the all-terrain tires, I have had a similar situation with sand. I used to live in California, and we had a van out there, and my wife wanted to take a cool picture in the sand, and we got the van in there, and I was freaking out, but the tires did the job, and we were able to get out easily because of those all-terrain tires. So
cool. Yeah, just air down a little bit. And
yeah,
it seemed to save us plenty.
yeah.
Yeah, and you guys still work with backwoods for some of the bumpers.
Yeah.
I saw some Illumina stuff out there, and you have your own roof rack. Like, who else do you work with vendor-wise that if somebody wants to add a little extra capacity or ruggedness on the outside?
Yeah, for the most part, that is what it is. It's backwoods, and one cool thing we've done with them in the past is they built what's called the Scout Bumper, which fits. It was designed for a Ford Transit, and it was exclusively designed for us. So we had for a year, the only vans that had that Scout Bumper was us. Nice. And that was in 2020 or 2020. I can't remember, 2020 or 2021. But we still we do that. The bigger bumpers with like bull bars, winches, all those kind of things. And then mostly on the back, we use that backwoods rear step bumper, and then aluminous tire racks and ladder racks and things like that.
How do you guys vet those vendors? Because I know like I've got the Transit off-road suspension, but you guys use the Q-lift and the Bilsteins and some Fox stuff. So it's different. There's other options out there. Like I just did a whole story on AWOL about how to lift a Ford Transit, and even talked to you guys for some intel on that one. So like, how do you, when you're picking which vendors to use for stuff like that, how do you decide which ones?
Yeah, I know for like the Quigley, for example, they used to do the Quigley 4x4, and they still do, but on the Transit with the way it is set up, they can't do it on the Transits anymore. But up to 2020, they were able to do it. But
so even on the rear wheel drives, you can't get like a 4x4 conversion?
You might be able to on the rear. I don't remember. They changed the way the axle is. It's like a split axle. I'm not super technical. Right. I think it's like a split axle now, and so it doesn't work on the 2020 or newer. But with Quigley specifically, they were they had a relationship with Ford, and it maintained the warranty of the van, and that's something that we are keen on. When we do our builds, we're maintaining the Ford factory warranty because we're not changing we're not doing anything structurally to change the integrity of the van. So that for that one specifically, that would probably be the answer with Quigley. For the other ones, I think it's mostly just building a relationship with them. We've been working with, I think when we started, Illuminous was probably like the company for those kind of things, and so we've just worked with them for 6 or 7 years now. And then Backwoods is, I believe, based out of Arkansas, so we're kind of neighbors there, and they're able to come up to our facility and vice versa. Cool. And it's just like working with them relationally at that point. So
and they're all super nice guys out there too. I've toured that factory, and and I realized like I never posted that story because by the time I left, they or got around to it, they had switched the model. So like my backwoods bumper is still the original 3-piece design, and now they're all 1-piece, and and they don't make the Scout for the 2019s and earlier, unfortunately, because that's a sweet little bumper.
Yeah, it is cool.
Yeah, very cool. I'm trying to think of what else I was going to ask you about. I saw something out there. Oh, Jared will love this. All right, so when I first picked up my van, there was it was a different factory. It was the building before this. It was a lot smaller, and Jared gave me a tour, and he's showing me like the offices and stuff too, and then his little lab, like it was like this secret room.
The mad scientist.
Yeah, I think only he was allowed in. And stuff, and he's like, all right, no pictures. He's showing me some really cool stuff, like just crazy ideas, which I love. And one of them was trying to integrate Amazon Alexa to control like the lighting and all this stuff in the van. I'm wondering if anything ever came of that.
So we do. I don't believe it's set up that way yet, but it probably will be an option somewhere down the line. We have what's called a C-zone system now. This van we're sitting in actually has it, but you can control like each individual component throughout the van. So like if you just want to turn off these lights only, you can turn off that section of lights or the front. And that has the ability to connect to an iPad. So in theory, you could use like Siri or Alexa or whatever to control like all of your components throughout the van and say like, hey, I want my or Alexa, set the temperature to 72 degrees or whatever. So I don't imagine that'll be too far down the road.
Yeah, that's pretty rad.
Yeah.
What else, if you can give it away, like what else are you working on that, if somebody's going to order a van now, they should inquire about that's super cool and exciting?
I'm trying to think of something. One thing we've already released them, but the interior shower is probably the biggest thing we've done recently. And they're still like, we'll tweak with the curtain to make sure all the water is like
Going
capturing. Yeah, exactly. But so I imagine it's like every time they say it's done, they do something else to like improve the usability of it. But that was like something I didn't know if we would ever do.
Right.
Because of winterization and all those kind of things. If you have water, there's just a lot more chance for something bad to happen.
Yes.
So I didn't know if we would do it, but we do it now, but it's still removable. So like that 15-gallon tank that's in the van, it's just like a 4-bolt system. You can pull the whole thing out, store it for the winter. The gray water tank is where the spare tire used to be. So that's where a lot of those showers will actually have the ladder rack on the back for your spare tire. But that's definitely like the coolest feature that we've done recently, in my opinion.
Yeah. And that's, there was a van out there that we saw that has it, and it's just a shower that goes around with like a kind of a drain floor thing, and it just runs down. I was looking under the van too. So it's literally just like PVC pipe that runs back to the gray water tank and stuff. So
there's some things like that. So like our S-bar, we're not adding a hole. There's actually a factory hole that we're tapping into.
Oh, okay.
And then like a lot of the ceiling mounts, we're not adding holes. There's actually factory screw holes up there already. So
nice.
We got kind of lucky with some of that stuff. But it's like Ford had an idea that people were going to add things to their van, and we were just kind of like tapping into the things that they already had set up for us. So,
Sweet.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you mentioned winterization, so like definitely. Even with just the I've got that little 8-gallon water tank in the back for the shower thing that I like, the shower out the back door thing, the hose, and I didn't drain that and blow that line out one winter, and it cracked the nozzle things and it started leaking in the spring, so I had to replace the nozzle thing and the hose actually. Yeah. So yeah, definitely.
Definitely winterize your van.
So. Yeah, even something so small.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for letting me grill you too.
Yeah, man.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I like the tables getting turned. Usually it's me just talking to Jared and him talking for 20 minutes with me going, yep, yeah, cool. So it's cool getting asked questions as well. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.